You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville. Welcome to another episode of Mission Log the Orville. This week's Sympathy for the Devil, the novella, or the one where the script just couldn't be produced during that COVID lockdown. We'll discuss the meanings, morals, and messages and see how it stacks up against the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. My name is Mike Richards.
And I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi. Mission Log the Orville is a conversation that depends on your participation. So please share your thoughts, ideas, and tell us what we missed at ML_the Orville on Twitter, Mission Log Pod on Facebook, or you can email us at missionlog-theorville@roddenberry.com. If you're watching this on the Roddenberry YouTube channel, just hit like and subscribe. Why not? And remember, we might just use your comments on an upcoming episode, of which there will be some here and there as we patiently await potentially a renewal of season 4 of the Orville.
Hashtag Morville. Hashtag renew the Orville. Hashtag the Orville season 4.
I haven't heard Morville yet, and that's fantastic. Mike, do us the favor and let us know what we're about to do.
Okay, we're going to recap Sympathy for the Devil, the novella written by Seth MacFarlane, which is posited as episode 8.5 of the Orville New Horizons. Spoilers ahead.
Yes, so if you haven't read it or listened to it by Bruce Boxleitner, stop, come back after you have.
Yep, hit pause, go get it on Amazon, Audible, or Kindle edition. Here we go. Prologue. April 1914. A woman runs frantically into an opulent New York City hotel. She pushes her baby across the countertop and forces the clerk to accept it. She promises that she will return and then exits. The hotel staff decide to give the child to the Vogels, a German couple who recently lost a baby due to typhoid. The Vogels are grateful for the baby boy and name him Otto after Gunther's father. Chapter 1. 1921, Berlin. Otto blows out the candles on his birthday cake. The Vogels have been forced to move to a modest home and give up their vacations abroad following World War I. Otto receives a toy airplane as Ilse's brother Karsten, who lost his arm in the war, rants that the Treaty of Versailles lets the United Kingdom and France weaken their country. Then he insults Gunther for not having fought in the war. 1931. Otto is delivering a loaf of bread to Frau Schneider. He has no passion to be a baker. He dreams of grander destinies. Enjoying Berlin, he pauses to consider some sweets and pulls out some money before stuffing it back in his pocket. Two larger boys shove him to the ground and take the bread. Luckily, an old clockmaker named Herr Hirschbach drives the robbers away, but all Otto feels is shame that he was rescued by an old Jewish man. On his way home, Otto sees several brown shirts, members of the Nazi Party's paramilitary wing. One of the men sees that Otto was in a fight and invites him to learn how Germany will soon change. Otto enters a beer hall where many brown shirts listen to an orator preach that Germany will rise and destroy the Jews and the Bolsheviks. The crowd praises Adolf Hitler as Otto joins in. Chapter 2, 1936. Hitler is now firmly in power, and Otto, a rising star within the Schutzstaffel, or the SS, is at a ballroom dance hosted by the Nazi Party. Otto has not spoken with his father in 5 years. Otto sees Anneliese, a particularly beautiful woman, to whom he is introduced by her father, General Schmidt. Although he is nervous, Otto is determined to marry Anneliese, as we head to Chapter 3. 1938. Anneliese and Otto are married in a ceremony attended by Otto's mother, Ilse, but not by his father, Gunther. Although Germany has conquered the Rhineland, Czechoslovakia, and Austria, Ilse and Gunther do not believe in war for the conquest's sake. Otto tells Ilse that soon his parents will have to decide whether they are for Germany or against it. As General Schmidt gifts Anneliese and Otto a house he acquired via laws passed which forced Jews out, Ilse leaves in disgust. Chapter 4. 1938. Otto and two other members of the SS arrive at Herr Hirschbach's place of business. Otto is now a junior storm leader in the SS, and Hirschbach is in violation of laws prohibiting Jews from owning a business. Although Hirschbach rescued Otto from two larger boys long ago, Otto sees this now as a moment of humiliation and demasculation. The three men force their way inside Hirschbach's store and begin smashing and shooting the clocks. Hirschbach charges one of the men, but he is easily knocked unconscious. All the while, Otto's mind is on lunch. Later in a pub, Otto approaches three men insulting Hitler. A British man attempts to defuse the situation, while an American calls the Nazis a bunch of mobsters. After a final round of insults leveled at Hitler, Otto gives up and beats him, all the time being watched by an SS operative. Chapter 5. Several months later, Otto's commanding officer summons him to a meeting to let Otto know that the SS were pleased to see Otto defend Hitler, and they have rewarded his loyalty with a new mission of discretion. 1940. Otto, Anneliese, and their new son, Alger Vogel, take a train through the Polish countryside where Otto takes command of a Nazi labor camp. He promises Anneliese that she will be a queen among peasants. Chapter 6. 1944. Otto shouts orders to a group of Jews who just arrived to his labor camp. He sizes them up with disdain and predicts one or two will be agitators. After finding his troublemaker, Otto commands the man to run, and when he turns his back to flee, Otto shoots him in the back of the head and orders the rest of the prisoners back to work. He then receives a message that two representatives from the Red Cross will inspect the facility in 10 days, as part of Hitler's plan to project a humane treatment of the Jews. 10 days later, Otto goes home to Anneliese and their son Alger to meet the two representatives, Ed Mercer and Kelly Grayson. Chapter 7. The prisoners had radically changed the labor camp in the last 10 days. Malnourished prisoners were either relocated or killed. Otto guides Ed and Kelly through the facility with pride. Suddenly, one of the healthy prisoners shouts, "Please help us! They're killing us!" The prisoner strikes the guard and wrests a machine gun free, shooting the guard. Other guards nearly kill the prisoner, but Otto orders them not to fire. He wants to convince the prisoner to lay down his gun to show that he runs a peaceful society, but the prisoner shoots Otto. The bullets pass through Otto's body. As other guards shoot and kill the prisoner, Otto is stunned. Kelly says, "Hold simulation," as everything freezes. Otto believes he has been drugged and asked who they really are, as Ed and Kelly end the simulation. Chapter 8. 24-22. Ed and Kelly watch Adam Collier, a.k.a. Otto Vogel, look about the simulator and vomit. They feel like Caliban watching a human in a zoo. Dr. Finn tries to sedate him, but Adam motions as if to fight back, so Kelly stuns him with her pulsar. Ed, Kelly, and Claire take Adam out of the simulator, past long-abandoned laboratories, and up an elevator where a shuttle awaits. Chapter 9. Leonard and Pamela Collier regret putting Adam in the simulator only to grow up into such a hateful young man, yet they also understand that such a life was better than to grow up in a Krill prison. The Colliers were experimenting with illegal null space energy. This is why they built a fortified laboratory underground. They believed their research could unlock limitless sources of power. An environmental simulator was added to help visualize their experiments, which they also ran for amusement. Pamela's favorite program? That's right, April 1914 in New York City. One time while running the program, they heard bomb blasts from the planet's surface. They realized they had been betrayed to the Krill. With no chance to escape, Pamela gave Adam to the hotel clerk in the program in the hopes that the simulator would care for him. The Colliers bartered for peace by willingly handing over their data on null space energy, and the Krill agreed to take Leonard and Pamela prisoner and not to destroy the facility. The Planetary Union believed the Colliers had died until the Krill returned them as part of a prisoner exchange. Meanwhile, The computer continued to run the simulation and expand the program over 30 years. Chapter 10. Adam believes the USS Orville is an elaborate trick and demands to know where his wife and child are. In Ed's office, the senior staff discussed the next steps. The Union Council passed authority over to them. In Adam's reality, he willingly participated in war crimes and genocide. Charlie says that even if Adam were treated, he would still be a dangerous psychopath. Claire disagrees. She says that he's not, that research done after World War II indicates that most people can be pushed to kill and succumb to moral weakness. The staff is undecided whether to punish Adam. When Claire says that Adam should not be shown much of the ship, Gordon says he has an idea. Tom Paris style. Chapter 11. Gordon shows Adam a Flash Gordon video from the 1930s. Gordon broaches the idea that Adam is on a rocket ship as well, and Claire guides him to a window to see space. Adam studies his surrounding. Wherever he is, it is far beyond Germany's technical capacity. The officers lead him down a corridor to some kind of elevator and then to a spiral staircase. He enters the bridge and was greeted by horrible creatures who look monstrously deformed. Sorry, Bortus, no offense. Adam screams to see Annalise and Alger. Claire softly says he will take them to see his family. Chapter 12. Adam and the gang enter the simulator. As the computer resumes the program, Annalise holds their son and smiles. He rushes to hug them, but passes right through their bodies and falls. He falls to his knees in despair. Ed joins Claire, Leonard, Pamela in Adam's quarters. His progress has been slow, but he's gradually accepting that he is in a future time. Ed enters the bedroom where Adam stares out at the stars. He asks if Germany still exists. Ed points out that Adam's worldview was entirely shaped by a computer. In fact, the computer protected Adam from any real danger or pain. As Adam scoffs, Ed punches Adam in the face. Adam feels pain and tastes blood for the first time. Ed tells Adam that the pain he feels is a mosquito bite compared to what he inflicted on others. Chapter 13. Alone in his room, Adam feigns an injury and overpowers a security guard. He holds an engineering officer hostage and demands to be taken to the simulator. He orders a simulation of the Bavarian countryside 10 years after World War II with a victorious Germany. He finds himself in a living room in the mid-1950s. Annalise and Alger greet him and they embrace. On television, a news broadcast shows the White House controlled by Germany. Everything is as Otto needs it to be. Just then a door opens and Adam is stunned. Ed is struck by the tragedy of a child who is warped by a machine into a mass of hatred and shattered hopes. Chapter 14. Adam is loaded into a shuttle, his will totally crushed. He will not face charges for assaulting 2 Union officers, but he will be placed under guard. His other crimes, those crimes, will not lead to any criminal sanction, but he will undergo psychological deprogramming at the Melbourne Center on Earth. Epilogue. The year 2287, or so, a customer enters a bakery and orders a loaf of cinnamon bread. The customer then says that he thinks the baker may have met his mother, Claire, long ago. Adam says yes, he remembers her. She helped him through a difficult time in his life. The customer introduces himself as Ty Finn. They shake hands before Ty leaves. Then Adam returns to his baking. The end.
Mike, great job. Great job writing this novella.
Well, I do want to give credit to the fandom Orville wiki site, which was a big source for that. I did not want to go even attempt to try to recap this whole thing. So that is a distilled version of the recap that appeared on the Orville wiki site. So thanks to all the fans that contributed to that. And it is now codified in mission log canon from here on out.
That's exactly right. And, if you're like me, part of me just wanted to know what the novella was about instead of reading it, just because sometimes it's just like, I just want to know, because if it's 8.5, do we need to know what happens next? Or,
right.
You know what I mean? I couldn't have imagined what this episode would have been or what the novella was about unless I read it or listened to it. And I'm so glad I did. It was so different than some of the other episodes or shows we've gotten. And it has stuck with me since I've listened to it on audiobook. So even if you did, for the first time, just listen to this now because you're like, oh, I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to pay the $3 to get the novella. Do it. It's fantastic. It's surprising, and we'll get more into that. But tell us who, what, when, where, why.
Well, I can only speculate as to why. But
my theory is Seth MacFarlane just wanted to punch a Nazi. That's how I feel.
I am almost embarrassed by how much joy I took at delivering that line.
You should be. That's what is the common phrase is always punch a Nazi, and I bet you that's how this book came about.
Yeah, let's write a story where we get to punch a Nazi.
Honestly, I'm sure it's that.
But written by Seth MacFarlane as an episode originally for the Orville New Horizons. However, with the COVID lockdown, they were looking originally at locations in Europe, international locations. I'll just leave it at that. But with the ban on international travel and COVID protocols and those kind of rules, it just became unfilmable. The narration, if you listened to the audiobook, I think we alluded to this already, narrated by Bruce Boxleitner, who is just fantastic. And it was released July 19th, 2022. So those are the who's and the when.
Good job.
A little bit of the what. So yeah, just a lot of fun. And again, positioned, we mentioned this before, as episode 8.5. So before Domino and after Midnight Blue. Midnight Blue being the Dolly Parton episode.
So I couldn't remember exactly where it did fall in because I just wanted to make sure I listened to it so that you and I could get to this recording of it. And the first half of the book is set technically in Germany, and to the point where I forgot. I was like, there's a long time, and this is why he must have written it purposefully, and it probably would have played out this way on if it was recorded or if it was made into the episode. He waited just long enough for me to stop going, when is the Orville going to come in?
Right.
When is the Orville going to come in? And then finally, it didn't even click for me until he said Kelly Grayson. Like when it didn't click to me that the Red Cross people would have been them. I was so in on the story, like, what is happening? He waited just long enough for me to stop asking, how is this an Orville episode?
I kind of have pictured what this might seem like if it had been an actual episode.
Right.
And
it's hard not to do that while listening to it.
It kind of reminds me of, something with a very, very long prologue. Like, there are episodes of Battlestar Galactica where they were like 15-minute prologues before they get to the opening credits. And I see this as being probably close to an hour and a half episode. I think the longest episode we had was an hour and 27 in New Horizons. So this one I think would have been right up there. And then after Ahmed Mercer, this is my associate Kelly Grayson, then roll the Orville credits, a full 45 minutes or so into the episode, I think it would have been just so mind-blowing. And it also reminds me of something that Mike McMahon said when he was talking about one of the episodes of Lower Decks, where he went to the studio and was like, okay, I want to do an episode that's kind of like when when you were a kid and you're flipping around the channels and an episode of Star Trek's on, you don't really know what it's about, so you got to figure it out by context, and then you kind of figure it out, and the studio's like, we don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, okay, you're flipping around the channels, it's like 10 minutes after the hour, and something comes on, and you don't know how it started, but you got to figure it out by context. And they're like, you know what, man, just do whatever you want.
Wow.
And that became the courtroom episode on Lower Decks, which was hilarious with the eels of truth and that kind of thing.
And it's such a good episode because you can't. That's actually one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, and it was super fun. And what he was trying to simulate was that thing where you kind of come in And I'll say it again, 10 minutes into the episode.
I don't understand, Mike. Just make it, and then I'm sure it'll be great. But actually, that's sad because they clearly are just streaming people. You know what I mean? Like, that's all.
Exactly.
That's it. Wild.
I'm picturing, whatever, like back in the days of Fox, if you can remember those, days way gone by, and on Thursday night when you turn the Orville on and you see this kind of World War II saga start to unfold, and you're like,
right.
What even is this? And you just kind of like, well, all right, F it. I guess the Orville's not on tonight. We'll just watch this biopic about a young and rising star in the Nazi Party. Right. And then 45 minutes later, boom, Ed Mercer, Kelly Grayson, opening credits.
What he did is such a good job of also disorienting us in the very same way that Adam Collier is disoriented.
Yes.
And that's why I was curious, like, I couldn't remember if it was 7.5 or 8.5 or whatever, because I was like, are we stuck in the past? And is Gordon now in the past? What's happening? Is this person Gordon?
How is Gordon going to use this to get some more Laura time?
Exactly. I was at a loss. And to your point also about dropping into an episode 10 minutes into it, not any idea, not all of the Doctor Who, David Tennant, and Chris Eccleston episodes had made it over the pond, but there was like a couple that did air every now and then, and I was still flipping through channels, and on comes the Weeping Angels one.
Right.
Or like the Girl Lost in Time with Matt Smith. Like, so I watched 2 Doctor Who episodes before I even knew what Doctor Who was, and I was riveted because they weren't sci-fi-y in the same way.
Right.
Like, there was more narrative, and so it pulled me, like, this. I mean, the Weeping Angels are one of the scariest things on the planet for me, but it pulled me in because I was like, what is this? And still didn't even know, but was sucked in enough. And so you're totally right. This is what this would do. And they disoriented us in much the same way that his world was thrust upside down. I do want to say this, especially being a daughter of a middle-aged white dude. There is a fascination that people have with Germany. People love watching, like I think it's particularly white guys love watching something about Hitler or anything on the History Channel. That doesn't mean I wouldn't sit there and watch it too, but there was like a compulsion to watch anything about it. And it was in a weird way. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying there is... I recognize this penchant in a particular subsect of humans, and it's a fascinating penchant.
It is. When I was a kid, the amount of television, on the few stations we had that was dedicated to things like The World at War, World War II in color, all of these shows, documentaries, and all the movies too that are centered around it. Now, I mean, from an American point of view, I mean, it was, probably our proudest moment, the greatest generation.
So there's something to that, right? Like the patriotism of it all.
I think there's something to that. I also think there's a darker side, though, too. I think there's like wouldn't it be great if...
we wouldn't watch full biopics and full deep dives into Hitler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which,
I do.
But I also... again, I'm not. There's not a demonization here. I was riveted by this story too, going, "Oh my god!" Like in a weird way, I was dropped in to. There's plenty of movies about Auschwitz, and that's just about. I'm not even doing a good job with words. So that's why I said Auschwitz. But of the slaughtering of Jewish people and the treatment, etc. And so we know so much about that war because it was so horrendous. But even still, I felt like I was an observer in a brand new way. And I'm sure that's a challenge too that Seth had. How do I tell a story we've seen a few times?
Well, it really, I get, this is the first half of the show. We're supposed to talk about the funny stuff a little bit. So,
that's
there was that one time where Kelly said, "Hey, what about the elephant in the room?" And Isaac was like, "I do not see any such pachyderm." Okay. That was like the only joke in the whole thing.
Okay. We got the joke out.
All right. We got the joke out of the way.
We're jumping in. I'm sorry. You're so right. I mean, it's still observations, Mike.
Yeah.
But you're totally right.
That and punching a Nazi. Who can't laugh at that?
The second that happened in the book, I was like, this is all Seth wanted to do. Was just which I think is great. I love it.
So you're exactly. There is this, and it's worldwide. There's this worldwide sort of attraction to authoritarianism right now. And I don't know how to explain it. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why it is. But authoritarian leaders are being elected through the democratic process all over the world. And I can't explain that. What I did love was the conversation. Again, that conversation in Ed's, Ed's office with the gang. And Charlie said, well, he needs to be punished. And Claire was like, oh, no. Charlie said he's a psychopath and he should be put away. And Claire's like, well, I mean, the research after World War II clearly showed that number of people could not have been insane. That normal, everyday people just go along with things. And we see it. We see it here. We see it other places.
And we saw why he went along with it, too.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we can definitely get into how and why the computer program decided to fall. Like, they basically were listening to his algorithms and penchants, which does speak to a whole new level of the human condition. Yeah. Right?
And it just kind of started with a little bit of randomness that just came up, like, hey, let's give him to the
what just happened.
The Wallaces, man. They're a couple from Dallas, Texas, and they just lost a baby to, what was that stuff that was malaria or whatever.
He could have been an oil tycoon.
Yeah, could have been anything, but it happened to be a German company, probably because in 1914 in New York, maybe there was a high probability of, a German couple vacationing at a high-end New York City hotel, and boom,
Sure.
Hilarity ensued.
Jesus.
But it's just one of those things where just random chance took over and over. And I mean, one of the long lessons of the Treaty of Versailles was that it was so onerous, it was so one-sided. It did put the Germans in such a bad position. I don't know all the history behind it. I just know this has been, told again and again, that because there was sort of no going forward for the German people under the Treaty of Versailles, they had to fight back at some point. That was going to happen. That directly caused their attitudes and their xenophobia going into World War II.
Interesting. I don't know very much about it too, and I think that's probably contributes to my earlier point of why people like how did we get to here? We do have, as humans, we do want to avoid making the same mistakes our ancestors made, so that we don't find ourselves in a world where people are in concentration camps. And again, this is probably for the heavier part. Of the heavier part of our podcast, but putting Latinos in cages isn't very far away from that too. And we're talking about good people. This is going to Claire's point. Not a million people can't be crazy, but a lot of people can be convinced of xenophobia. And for absolutely no apparent reason, people are being convinced that the problem is immigration, and that the problem are people that aren't white. And they're doing it in political ways, and so, but yet at the same time, you would never say, I would never hurt a Jewish person. You know what I mean? I would never put somebody into a concentration camp. In your right mind, you wouldn't. But you do listen to someone who helps you feel less disenfranchised, who tells you that you're a valuable member of society, even though you're losing your job because they're voting for corporations that are sending your job overseas, etc. You're being told one thing and then another, but then, so, oh God, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to fascism and all those things, and it's upsetting. We're doing it now. So not only is this episode a great reflection, this novella / episode a great reflection on how easy it is to become hateful. But it's a cautionary tale for a direction we're heading right now. That's kind of what I'm saying.
It is, and I will. I was having a conversation with a coworker not too long ago, and he personally said he takes great offense at throwing the word fascist around. That fascist is an extreme, right? That is putting people in extreme. I just kind of wanted to share their point.
Got it.
That putting people into an extermination camp, that's fascism. That's not happening here. What I see is a penchant towards authoritarianism. I see rising xenophobia. I see blaming others for your problems. I see comparing people like the Nazis were famous for calling the Jewish people vermin. We have politicians calling Mexicans animals. Mm-hmm. It's that dehumanization. Mm-hmm. So I think there are a lot of kernels of that kind of thought process that are very, very, and had been and are very close to exploding, propagating themselves, growing, and infecting the minds of more and more people. And it's dangerous.
I mean, I'm not afraid to call the pachyderm in the room the pachyderm. I do think I think we are in a fascist culture, and people just are being told they're not, and they're buying it. Because another pillar of fascism is extreme patriotism and believing in this country, and people want this country to go back to, what was it again? Where only white people were really successful and things like that. And then you're being bought and sold that, first of all, Antifa doesn't exist, and if it does, it's not.
Oh no, they do exist. They caused the riot at the Capitol on January 6th.
I would be good to know. Good to know, Mike. Thank you so much.
Just wanted to straighten that out for everybody.
No, got it. I got it. So they're also for Trump. I'm so confused. But to get to the point now where you've run the tape so much that you think being anti-fascist is bad. Like, they've gotten people to believe so far the opposite of but yeah. I think people are just, I had to ask for clarification, just to be honest, I had to ask for clarification on what fascism was. And, I was asking one of my very good friends who's very smart. I like to ask things, especially if I'm like, I'm not so sure I understand it now. Because the message is unclear. No, like, when you're saying Antifa's bad and fascism, what is fascism? We're not a fascist regime, are we? So anyway, my friend drew in a big sigh, and then, we pulled up a tenets of fascism, and I went, got it, I understand now. And you can point to the several different ways in which our country and some of its occupants are heading in that direction. And I think at the end of the day, we all want a healthier, happier, less oppressive situation to live in. I think some of the ways that we go about it as a culture is wrong. And then you have people taking advantage, like a Talea, of people's feeling disenfranchised and galvanizing that and weaponizing anger. So I think, we see that in the Otto character, who was embarrassed by his father, embarrassed by himself for not being able to fight for himself, not embarrassed of his country. There's so many things that we can relate to, which is why it's a very important and generous thing for them to say, no one is really above feeling this way. And we can see how people get to there. What we didn't resolve is, how did Adam Collier finally get rehabilitated and was able to re-enter society as a normal, less hateful person?
It's tough because the word that they used was deprogramming.
Right.
And, I mean, clearly there was some programming involved through the brown shirts and through that nationalism and through that promise of how things would be better and Germany's return to greatness. That's all programming, right? I mean, we've discussed things like this before. So deprogramming shouldn't sound like a bad thing, but
Right.
it just kind of sounds like the same thing in reverse.
Which is a good thing or a bad thing? Like,
I don't know.
It
I mean, in this case,
is,
it's a good thing.
Right. It still is reformulating someone's belief to conform to a belief of your own. Right?
Right.
Reprogramming or deprogramming can be the religious camps that try to tell people that they're not gay. That could be a deprogramming. Or you
Right.
can deprogram people out of cults or things like that. Deprogramming religious zealotism or adding or getting and re-indoctrinating somebody to
Right.
it. So this is a conundrum.
I would have preferred the term therapy, I think, which
But it
maybe
is
tomato,
deprogramming,
tomato.
I guess.
Yeah.
Because he was indoctrinated. But I guess I think you're hitting on a point, and maybe tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm
You're
not.
never wrong. Come on.
Well, I'm definitely wrong all the time, and usually just because my words don't line up with exactly what I'm thinking. I try to ask friends, I try to ask myself this question, and we've even gotten criticism for sharing our opinions, God forbid, on a podcast. What makes our views right? Why do we feel justified to be right? Who makes us right? If we feel like the other side is as wrong as they feel that we are wrong too. So who is the right person here? So it's a complicated question because what is right and wrong should be cut and dry, and it's not.
It is that's a great question, and I'm reminded right now of an episode of Voyager, which was just covered on Mission Log, called Projections, about the Doctor finding out, trying to decide whether or not they are really a hologram or a living being living in a program. Ooh. So some similar themes there. And the breakdown of that pointed to René Descartes, who promised to spend the rest of his life from the time that he wrote this trying to break down and examine every belief that he has, every opinion that he has, every belief that they have, to validate whether or not it is true. To not take things on blind faith, to not say things such as, well, that's how my parents did it, or that's how I was raised, or that's what my church believes, or that's what my, country believes, or that's, what my school taught me. To literally break down and examine every belief that you have so that you can decide and you can move forward from a place of reason and independence. And that is that's the answer right there, I think, to your question, is how do you know you're right? Because you took the time to think about it. You took the time to use your brain and make some sound, educated deductions, and not just say some ignorant BS that I hear all the time. Well, that's what my parents did. So you're completely forfeiting your own independent free will. Because that's how they were, because you're going by somebody that was raised at a time that they didn't know what we know now. Things are different now, and you're not going to adapt and change and learn.
But how comfortable is change, Mike?
Well, it's completely uncomfortable. But you got to do it.
No, I'm being facetious, of course.
Yeah.
There's a great quote that is the deadliest phrase in the English language is, we've always done it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easy. I guess that's exactly my point, is I like to stop and go, oh, what makes me so right in this moment? Because, boy, I like being right. I like when I know what I'm talking about. When I talk to family members that don't agree with me anymore politically or what have you, they think I got bought and sold by the liberal agenda. And that sucks and is tough because, man, I thought you raised me better than that to be a little bit more of a critical thinker. You think that I'm just going to get swallowed whole by propaganda? Again, to this novella's point, we can. It's totally possible. So, and then you have other people that question even the validity of any of the information's out there, and that's a whole new can of worms that you can't contend with. When people are just deciding to not listen to actually educated people with doctorates and degrees that you do not have, then and just dismiss that information outright, then you're too far gone.
Yeah, so that reminds me of Majority Rule, where Ed asked the folks on Lacella's planet, so you just vote for what you think is right and wrong? She's like, yeah, what do you do? He goes, we elect experts that are, experts on policy and science and things. Theoretically, that's what we do anyway. And then they can make the decisions. That's that, representative part of the democracy. But I watched a great movie last night with Tiffany. It wasn't a great movie. It actually took a really hard left at the end that I won't go into. It was called Vengeance. Okay. And it was on one of the streamers. I forget which one. It was about a dude from New York who went down to Texas to do a podcast, a true crime podcast about the death of a woman that he had dated in the past. So at one point he was talking to people that always kind of use their gut to make decisions. And he goes, why don't you try using your head? Because when you use your gut, the earth is flat, climate change is false, and vaccines are filled with microchips that track your whereabouts and change your DNA. So he was like, why don't you try using your brains for a minute? And that was, I thought, a fantastic line. And, being a guy from New York, I felt like I was maybe ought to sue because I feel like he was going into my brain and taking my thoughts at some point. Now, is it okay to have heart? Obviously, you want to balance those two things, but man, use your brains, folks.
But I guess that's just it. Is when you go so deep into a well like that, where you are in an echo chamber and you are being shown the same thing on the internet over and over again, and you are seeing vitriol and you're seeing people yell and you're watching somebody speak impassionedly about something that you didn't know you disagreed with or agreed with, you can change the temperature. You can change the gauge of your gut. You could start believing the wrong thing, and then when other people challenge that becomes the gut reaction.
It becomes familiar. Just the more times you hear it over and over again, the more likely you are to believe it.
Yeah.
And it's still single source, it's still not backed up by any facts, just kind of how our brain's wired. You mentioned change before, and it was actually, I believe it was General Schmidt, Annalisa's dad, in a conversation with, I believe at the wedding this happened, but I could be wrong. It was earlier on. It was chapter 3, maybe at the wedding, where he says change is exciting for some people. Others take a little longer to get used to progress. Now that was him trying to explain Mama Vogel's reticence towards how things were changing in Germany under the rule of the Nazi Party. And I thought that was kind of an interesting, because the quote is nice. Change is exciting for people. Others take a little longer to get used to progress. I like that thought. I don't really like how it was applied in this case.
No.
So both of these things can be misused. If I may, we talked about, I used the term labor camp in the recap. They didn't really spell it out. They didn't really give a name of the place. Or I should say, they didn't name the place.
They didn't name where he went, I don't think, right?
It was Poland. They never named the camp.
Okay.
Unless I missed it in my 2 listenings and 1 reading, which is
I don't know. Yeah.
Quite possible. But they did say it was in Poland, so I immediately thought of Auschwitz, which was in Poland. And then I kind of looked up, okay, well, how many camps were there in Poland? There were hundreds. It wasn't even okay, there were 6, okay? There were hundreds.
Because I think they said that theirs was not a kill camp.
Right. It was a late. Okay.
They
right.
could do that, but they were not an extermination camp.
Right. And those were the big ones. Those were the notorious ones.
So again, really not important distinction because it's all awful. But yeah, I don't believe it was Auschwitz for that very reason.
Right.
Because also it's very well known who was the leader there, I'm sure, by those,
Right, and I wasn't trying to separate degrees of badness.
I don't think so.
What I was trying to say was just how ubiquitous these places were. I mean,
right.
Hundreds, like just in Poland, which is not that big a place.
Which I'm sure, I didn't look into this, but that was what was so interesting about the Red Cross coming in. At a certain point, I think there's evidence that America knew what was going on in the camps. The people revealed it as this big shock. Oh my God, what did they, why didn't we join sooner? I think America knew, and it wasn't until Pearl Harbor was bombed that we all went, oh, I think we want to, again, I welcome someone fixing that opinion. But this is how I remember it. But America apparently knew. But the Red Cross, I wonder if that actually did happen. Was the Red Cross coming in to see what the humanity conditions were in certain areas?
It's a good question. I do wish I had looked into that. It seemed feasible that Otto, or in the narrative in the novella, it stated that was part of Hitler's program to portray a humanitarian front.
Right.
So that they were invited in. So if it's framed that way, that sounds believable.
Right. I'm sure there's a world where he had to accommodate certain things in order to, because what did he do? He confused France and then ended up signing a non-aggression act with Russia.
It was the Molotov-Tippendale thing all over again, Jessica.
Which I know nothing about.
Which I know it was Molotov something. That's the only word I could remember because of the cocktail.
Molotov cocktail?
Yeah, I think that's how I remembered the word anyway. Yeah, it's a thing.
Molotov cocktail?
Yeah, but remember in Domino's when the Krill and the Mocklins got together and it said it's the Molotov?
Oh, yes.
That was the non-aggression pact between Germany and Russia that led to them both invading Poland and kind of slicing it in half.
Goodness gracious, you're so smart.
No.
No, you are. That's why we are in this together, Mike.
And that's kind of how I was able to piece, and disclaimer on the recap too, I threw some dates in there. They're all approximate based on what was going on in history at the time.
Gotcha.
Otto turning 7, okay, that's 1921. They talked about something being 10 years later, so okay, that's 1931.
Right.
I pieced together a 1938 thing based on the invasion of Austria had already happened. Poland had not happened yet. And then a couple of days later, when he read that Germany and Russia signed a non-aggression pact, I knew exactly when that was. So things like that.
Got it. Well, I mean, it was helpful to have some orientation. Anyway, I think what I haven't said yet is I liked this so much. I liked this novella so much.
That's coming from somebody who I heard has the social media influence to get 6 or 7 people to buy a video game that they may not have already bought.
That's also being really generous. So I don't even know if I think it's less than that.
I don't even have that much social media influence also, but I really liked it. I thought it was a good story. I thought it was one of those, and I think I definitely heard Seth say somewhere, interview or someplace, that he loves the kind of conundrums that are so out there that they're not real. They're not a black and white thing that could happen in real life. You don't have to get preachy. Like, this kind of thing could never happen, to us, right? Nobody's going to get raised in an environmental simulator, commit a bunch of crimes, and then we got to decide whether or not to punish them or not. Okay? That is a completely hypothetical sci-fi premise that just gives us a chance to say, like, wow, what would you do? Like, is this guy guilty of murder and genocide and just complete, douchiness? That's not even a good enough word. Just complete monstrosity. Like, is he guilty of those things for having done them in a simulator? And that's the kind of sort of Twilight Zone-esque or just thought exercise that I know was part of the goal of the Orville when it was conceived.
Yeah. And it does. I mean, I think that they understood the implications by just writing this and creating the episode alone. It arrives to some empathy for some of the people in the German army to some extent as well, too, in a weird way.
It does for the people that were kind of brought into it, along for the ride, so to speak. So I got an idea. If you want to transition to the other side, we can maybe talk about some of the quotes that we have highlighted and see if there's any conversation as far as like bigger issues and things like that.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
I thought we were there anyway. So
sounds good. Well, we need a formal transition, so
right. I'll see you there. All right, so we've come to the part, I guess, of the show where we explore the big... It's been so long since we've done this much. The big ideas in the novella, Sympathy for the Devil, and discuss the meanings, morals, messages to see if they align with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy.
So the first line I've got highlighted was during Otto's 7th birthday party. And Dad said to drunk uncle, "If you see a friend or brother whom you truly love destroying themselves... you do not feed his undoing through blind fealty. You try to save him from it. It's the same with one's country. True patriotism is not only to celebrate your nation's glories, but to care for her if she begins to decay, to fight the deterioration. In Germany's case, to help her learn to live in peace. That is the only way she will truly prosper." I mean,
there were so many things that Otto's parents in the simulator reflected that made me go, if we could only apply that to today, right?
Right.
Not believing in war for conquering and how to care for a country that maybe does need help. Acknowledging that a country needs help.
Yes.
We're not bred in America. This is the only lens I have to apply it to. But we're not bred in America to believe that we have any problems.
It's, and I go back to like when I was a kid, I was 8 years old when the Vietnam War ended. And there were, stickers all around. There was the Give Peace a Chance ones. And then there was the My Country, Love It or Leave It. My Country, Right or Wrong. Right, My Country, Right or Wrong is I think the real dangerous one, and that comes to this. But just something to think about. As a patriot, is it your duty to go along, or is it your duty in a democratic society to try to use what influence you have as a citizen to try to get things back on the right track? It's a very rhetorical question,
right?
If you can modify the word rhetorical, but it's
Can you?
I guess so. It's not.
That was a rhetorical question.
So that was rhetorical. Somebody knows. If we got any English majors, hit them up. I did notice in my second reading that when Otto got beat up by the boys and the old man asked him if he was hurt, he said, "No, I'm not hurt."
Right.
Yeah. Little foreshadowing there.
My mind rewound to that moment when Ed said, "You didn't ever experience pain."
Okay, and you remembered that moment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Because he did. I listened to all of it in one go, so it's not like it was hard to remember something I heard 3 hours ago. So, but it did make me go, "Oh, has he been ever physically hurt?" Like he did live a charmed life in that way. There was a couple different ways that I thought this episode was going to go. And one of them, I was like, are they going to attempt to kill Hitler? Is this where they're going to actually show us what, everyone says you can't go back in time and kill Hitler.
And even use that as an example. You go back, you kill Hitler, somebody worse comes along.
Yes. I mean, that's exactly, so I thought that was going to happen. And I was curious, what are the odds that this kid is Aryan enough looking to be dropped off into a German family and become fully integrated into society? I thought there might be an issue of, we're actually Jewish or something, what the parents were. I was trying to figure out how the parents would come back into the situation too.
Definitely. I like I said, I felt like at no point was I ahead of the story.
Oh, not at all. That was what was so amazing about it. And I think I told you before, with Improvised Generation, we've done the, oh crap, how do we end this show? and simulation.
Yep, there you go.
I was asleep the whole time. And they kind of did that with Alara, right? When when the clown and all that stuff wasn't real. And
I got a little bit more on Alara I wanted to get to in just a little bit. This was Otto's experience when he went into the pub with the brown shirts for the first time. Now think about this. Your dad's a baker. They're much more modest. They said they weren't paupers at this point, but they had gotten run down the social ladder from an economic standpoint. He's frustrated. He hears crap from his drunk uncle about how bad Germany is and stuff like that. And he walks in and he says, there was something intoxicating, something electric about the atmosphere in this room. Drilling his way through the speech with blunt efficiency, quote, "The Fuhrer has given us back our might, our dignity, and our rightful place as the greatest nation on earth. Under his leadership, the National Socialists will claim the fatherland, and we will seek out our enemies and destroy them, the Bolshevik, the Jew, the conspirators who dared to oppress us, and all of those who stabbed our army in the back in the last war. They will be crushed under the heel of our great movement, with the heavens guiding the hand of our Fuhrer." I mean, it's painfully targeted to somebody who wants to put all of their frustration and all of their shortcomings on the backs of somebody else and make them pay. And that was the kind of psychological warfare that was being wrought upon the young people in Germany at the time to make them join this movement. And
I mean, it's all I can think of are what would you interchange that with what's going on in America today?
You wouldn't have to change many words.
No,
not at all.
And to think that people don't have the playbook on how to galvanize bigots or galvanize people that are disenfranchised would be naive, to say the least.
At least, yeah.
Right? Because Trump didn't incite January 6th, but didn't he not? Aren't there certain phrases that are smart to not say, but do the same thing? A lot of what Hitler did was talk. And so there are people that know how to manipulate. So
and it even
that's
says
what's been really scary about this book.
It even says it in the book. It's Hitler's genius was not firing a shot. Just right. that threat. I mentioned I wanted to get back to Tala a little bit.
There's Alara and then Tala.
Yeah, this was chapter 9. So both. I wanted to talk about both of them. Ed wrote, Seth MacFarlane wrote, Tala's tough.
That's right.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to our conversation that I think we had in when we covered the season finale of New Horizons. Tala's tough, hard-edged demeanor had taken some getting used to after the departure of Alara, the Orville's prior security chief who had returned to her home the previous year. It had been sad for the crew, but particularly difficult for Ed, who had developed a substantial trust in Alara, as well as a genuine investment in her well-being. It was peculiar to feel so protective of someone whose very job it was to protect you. However, Tala had proven to herself on multiple occasions to be as capable an officer as one could find anywhere in the fleet, and she had pulled the crew out of more than one tough spot. Ed had grown to like her. I like her.
I like her.
But he's not protective of her. He was not particularly close to her. It wasn't
Tala, you mean?
Tala, yeah. Like he felt all those feelings for Alara, felt that way about Alara, but Tala, he just grew to like her.
He grew to like Tala or grew to like Alara?
Tala. Did I botch the delivery? Should we go back to the beginning of that?
I misunderstood in your delivery and in the book then. I thought he was talking about how despite all of what, because of how Alara handled herself, he grew to like Alara.
He
I thought that's what he was saying. He was talking about Tala in that moment. Can you reread
he
it?
switched. He switched. I'll read just kind of the pertinent parts again.
It's not you, because it's how I heard it before too.
Yeah. Tala's tough, hard-edged demeanor had taken some getting used to after the departure of Alara.
Right.
She returned to her home planet of Zalea the previous year. It had been sad for the crew, but it was particularly difficult for Ed,
right,
who had developed substantial trust in Alara, as well as a genuine investment in her well-being.
Right.
It was peculiar to feel so protective of someone whose very job it was to protect you. Right?
Still talking about Alara.
Still talking about Alara. That's a lot of feelings for Alara.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
Now, changing to Tala, however, Tala had proven herself on multiple occasions to be as capable an officer as one could find anywhere in the fleet, and she had pulled the crew out of more than one tough spot. He had grown to like her.
Yep.
Not quite the same thing.
Not quite the same thing.
And I kind of felt, and we talked a little bit about that in our coverage of Future Unknown, when I was like, it's not a Jessica Zor thing. It's not a Halston Sage thing. It's just, I think there was a lot more maybe character development through things like Command Performance and Home and, other episodes that got us Firestorm.
Right.
That got us really invested in Alara Katan that we just didn't get with Tala.
Right.
And I think we all feel the same way. She's great, right? She does her job. She's awesome. She'd punch you in the nose if you thought it'd protect you. I'd rather maybe you try something else first. But I think we all kind of grew to like her. Right. And that's kind of a sort of underwhelming feeling, I thought. And it kind of, to take the time in a whole paragraph of a novella to say that, I thought was an interesting choice. But it made me feel validated.
I think that's a good point. I think that's a very good point. I think I thought it was very interesting and sentimental because it also didn't need to be addressed at all.
Right.
But we've also talked about this before too. You don't need to love everyone you work with, but he can. But holding up Tala to the same flame,
and we mean that metaphorically and literally.
Yes. We talked about that also. To hold Tala and Alara up to the same flame is not fair. Also. And it sounds like Ed probably, without the nuance of the show, struggled with that and had come to his own decision about how he felt about Tala.
Right.
That's interesting.
Good.
That's a good pull-out.
Good summary. So what do you think? Next one, if we're going to talk about big decisions, Charlie says, so what happens? Does he get treated as a war criminal or not? The intensity of her blue-eyed stare made him suspect that she was perhaps drawing mental parallels to another, more recent massacre, a.k.a. Isaac and the Kalon. Let me just... I felt like I was going to ask the question a certain way with tone and body language.
Sure.
Do you think that Otto/Adam should be held accountable for his crimes in the simulator?
That's a great question. I don't know because it's complicated, but he clearly isn't safe for society until otherwise
deprogrammed.
So
I agree.
It's complicated. I understand he with willpower and freedom of choice committed those behavioral acts.
Freedom of choice is what you got. Freedom from choice is what you want. That's
freedom of choice, freedom
Devo.
from... Oh, okay, Devo.
Yeah.
All right, rocking my world.
So, hey, man, I can't drop it. I think it's the first appearance of Devo in Mission Log the Orville.
No, by all means, please do.
Yeah.
Also, Mike had an opinion.
So, and that does probably go a better way to explain the democratically elected authoritarian leaders around the world. Because freedom of choice is hard. Freedom from choice is easy. Freedom of choice is what you got. Freedom from choice is what you want. And then, we already talked about Claire's response. following the Holocaust, it was statistically impossible for all of them to be insane. It just couldn't happen, so something else had to be at work. What the researchers revealed is far more chilling. These were regular, ordinary people who had simply fallen in line behind a voice of authority, even though it meant the mass extermination of their fellow human beings. Just wow. You see rallies all over the world, not in any particular place, not for any particular leader.
No.
Being held, and you're just like, really? This guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I hate that I know people that I can understand how they got to a place where they like certain people. I hate that. But at the same time, it helps humanize that penchant in people. I can see how come we get to this place. Something too, just I meant to mention when you were talking about how we elect people that are the right people, like in their field.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, let's elect some experts.
We don't right now.
Nope. No, we don't.
I had a great guest on, you don't know, Nick, you being one of them, but another gentleman was talking about how at a certain point when newspapers came about, it all became popularity for elections, and that's it. And right now, we are dealing with just that. We have incompetent people in the Senate, in the House of Representation, and in the executive branch that have just bamboozled their way into office. And it's good to know in their future that that's not the case. That they actually value people for their capabilities and their smarts. So our democracy will work better if we actually start valuing people who are good and competent at their job.
I can only second that thought. Ed was apparently very familiar with this piece of research that Claire brought up, because he
how coincidental.
And the worst part of the discovery was that the instinct is inside every one of us. Sound familiar? Waiting for a skilled demagogue to harness it. Picture yourself in Adam Collier's shoes. I'm sure you'd think you'd resist the authority of your superiors if they instructed you to kill. Maybe you would resist, but the research suggests that for most of us, that's a fantasy. That reminded me of a Taste of Armageddon from Star Trek, the original series, where Captain Kirk said, I am a killer, but I've decided I'm not going to kill today. And Ed said that piece of that instinct is inside every one of us, waiting for a skilled demagogue to harness it. But that's when you have to make the hard decision to say no.
I think what was the most chilling of this whole book was he was thinking about lunch. That's how casual.
Yes. I mean, this was a man that put himself on the line to help him. Not, less than 10 years ago, I would say, based on the timeline of the book. And he was so easily able to turn his back on him. So, what do you think? I think we're probably running up on about an hour now. You want to?
Yeah. What is our
summarize final thoughts?
Our morals, messages, and meanings. Does it align with the Roddenberry?
I think this was a great, just a wonderful story that, sadly, due to COVID-19 restrictions, as well as probably the expense of shooting on location and just the sort of
even emotional
maybe
toll.
Brand identity didn't get filmed, but man, it was a good story, and it gave a lot of thought and ideas, and like every good Orville episode, they have that conversation halfway through. They're like, but this side of the story, wait, but there's this side of the story, and let's think about this, because if you think about things ahead of time before they happen to you, then you've got at least some idea of how you might react or how you might proceed in that situation. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was written well. I think it was narrated awesomely. I did go back later after listening to the audiobook. I did go back and read the novella just because and there were things that I picked up in print that I had missed in listening to it.
Sure.
So it was kind of a nice kind of coming at it from both sides. And if you've made it this far through the podcast and you haven't read it yet or listened to it, there's probably not much left to surprise you, but I would still do it anyway because there's so much nuance and so many layers to this story that we were not able to cover.
Oh my God, yeah, totally.
But yeah, this
the loss of his family, his wife, etc. Like, gosh, I mean, how about the emotional toll that it just put on Otto as a human? To be raised by the simulator in totality. Like there is so much to talk about. I think we did focus on the political aspect of it a lot, which I think is okay too.
I think it was a political story. Any final thoughts?
I just feel like, aside from probably actual American patriotism, etc., this felt very much like a TOS episode to me, in the best way. I could, but you know, they would go to Germany. They would find a way to go to the past somehow.
Oh yeah, because they had the set right next door. I mean, that was the whole idea. It's like, hey, what are they filming? They're doing Guns Never Own on the Paramount lot. Okay, we'll have a German planet this week.
Right, 100%. I just feel like this is a quintessential episode that does reflect that nothing is perfect. It's very hard to make decisions about certain things, and ultimately it seems like goodness wins out.
I love it. Mission Log The Orville is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, technical production by our friend Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is podcasts.roddenberry.com. If you're watching the live premiere on YouTube, join us right now on the Mission Log Discord to continue the conversation. If you don't have access, go to patreon.com/missionlog and join for as little as $1 per month.
Join us next time on Mission Log The Orville for our next supplemental episode. This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.